Good morning, folks. This is Deb. So this is kind of a continuation of yesterday's video, but let me just preface it a little bit. I'm very much scripted for this video, which is unusual for me, but this is important, and there's absolutely no way I could give you this information in a soundbite or even a 10-minute video. So I want you to listen to what I'm saying, and then I want you to avail yourself of the information I put in the description of this video. This is about just how dangerous reelecting Donald Trump is. So let me start by talking about Dr. Bandy Lee. She is the assistant professor of clinical psychiatry at Yale. This was back in 2016 now. She was involved in violence projects. She had evaluated and treated hundreds of violent offenders, including leaders of prison gangs. So in 2016, Iowa was preparing for the caucuses, and Bandy Lee wasn't really paying much attention to the election because her mother was terminally ill and dying, and she was enmeshed in that personal scenario. But she was absolutely shocked when she was sitting in the hospital room and watching a Trump rally on the TV where he actually told his supporters to, quote, knock the crap out of hecklers, end quote, and he would pay their legal bills. What she was witnessing, she felt, was exactly the type of behavior she'd seen with leaders of prison gangs, believe it or not. According to Lee, gang members would often ask their members to engage in violence, then issue bogus promises of protection. She said, like Trump, these leaders also offer projections of extreme self-confidence, and that's appealing to those who follow them because they tend to feel a deep need for protection, connection, and identity. Now, the day after the election, she received phone calls from many of her colleagues and many of her friends who were concerned about the fact that Donald Trump got elected. These people originally had thought he was just a bogus businessman. But watching that clip on TV kind of woke them up. And she was asked if there was anything she could do. They were concerned that it would lead to increased violence. Okay. And she decided to organize a conference that they held in New Haven. Then it was titled, Does Professional Responsibility Include a Duty to Warn? Now, you know, a handful of other prominent psychiatrists joined her. They were concerned, including Dr. Robert J. Lifton, who was the author of The Nazi Doctors. While only 24 people showed up, she initially thought this whole thing was a huge failure and it was just going to fall by the wayside. But then she saw the media coverage, and the media coverage was pretty extensive, and it was covered in countries around the world. So she began to solicit papers from other of her colleagues about potentials for violence under a Trump regime. She published it all in a book called The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. And the Washington Post actually called that book the most daring book of 2017. Then the hammer fell. The leaders of the American Psychiatric Association began to publicly attack Lee, accusing her of acting irresponsibly and violating the 1973 Goldwater Rule, which was an APA guideline stating that, quote, it is unethical for a psychiatrist to offer a professional opinion, end quote, of anyone without conducting a personal examination and getting proper approval. This rule exists because back in 1966, Goldwater successfully sued Fact magazine, which ran a piece in which dozens of leading psychiatrists offered assessments of Goldwater's psyche. They called him impulsive, impetuous, immature, unstable. And, you know, we have to be honest here that back in those days, the whole psychiatric family was enmeshed in Freudian psychology. And let's state that the study of violence has come a long way since then. So there was a lot of kind of what people felt was gobbledygook that would harm the candidate. Now, if you look back at Goldwater's speeches, he was fiery, but he was nothing compared to Donald Trump. So much like the judicial system, the APA instituted a cease and assist. I call it cease and assist order, because their main concern is in harming the candidate rather than protecting the country. So we've seen the result of what Donald Trump has wrought upon the United States. We saw the Unite the Right rally, where we marched to a college campus with burning torches, okay, white supremacists. We've seen Trump's failure to, decry the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. In fact, uniting with them. We've seen him invite thugs to the Capitol to prevent the peaceful transfer of power because he spread the lie that the election was stolen by Joe Biden. We watched as they looked for Nancy Pelosi to kidnap her and do her harm. We watched as they went into her husband, where her husband was staying alone in his condo, and beat the crap out of him with a hammer. We've watched them build gallows with the threat of hanging Mike Pence. And we heard Nancy Pelosi, as a result of the J6 committee hearing, we heard that Nancy Pelosi said to Mark Milley, quote, "This unhinged president could not be more dangerous, and we must do everything to protect the American people from his unbalanced assault on our country," end quote. We also now know that key Republicans like Kevin McCarthy, Stephen Mnuchin, and Betsy DeVos considered invoking the 25th Amendment to remove him after the insurrection. Now, here we are, and once again, because of cease and assist, Donald Trump is on the ballot. Okay, we had several states try to remove him because he's a convicted felon, because he incited an insurrection, and the Supreme Court took care of that for him. We have had just recently his sentencing postponed till after the election because they don't want to affect the election. You got to be kidding me. And we've had Judge Cannon throw out his documents case. What I'm saying here is electing Donald Trump is a very dangerous prospect now. He is a very dangerous, unstable person. And we have seen this all now play out in front of us for several years. But Bandy Lee has been vindicated. And in the description of this video is an article from Mother Jones, which is a completely free magazine. You should be able to access that, that talks about this. There are also several videos of Dr. Lee being interviewed. She is now gaining an audience to present what she believes is true about Donald Trump. And everybody owes it to themselves in this country to look at the material I place in this video. So without further ado, I'm closing this out. I could not possibly give you all of the details of this. And I really do want to encourage you to look into what's going on here in the United States with regard to Donald Trump's reelection. There is absolutely no way this election should be this close. And it is scary. And as we now know, some people who wanted to invoke the 25th Amendment have bowed down to him. And Betsy DeVos has discussed perhaps rejoining a new Trump regime. We must not allow Donald Trump to become president of the United States ever again. I will talk to you all soon.